I took the ring workshop because I've been writing for quite some time, and I have a history in education with English in a post-secondary way, but nothing substantial in terms of storytelling or script writing. I'd always kind of just gone from instinct, and I needed some real grounding and structure to my work to make it come off the page and to really have the pacing that I think it was lacking.
And did that happen?
Absolutely, yeah. I found that the draft that I brought into the ring session, between the time that I brought it and the time that I finished, it had completely revamped. The characters themselves changed in terms of what their wants and needs and drive was, which inherently transformed the whole script and the way that it played out as a script. What I think I took away most in terms of learning from the ring was how to take my script and turn it into a character-based story. So using the characters to move our plot forward, and at every junction looking at where those characters were in their own arc, small and major, in order to push the story along.
How did the ring help in revising the last caribou?
The ring did a pretty big number in revising the last caribou. For myself, I'd found that I'd had a really good synopsis, a really great thing going on in terms of what the world of the script was and what the script was itself, but how I was getting there needed a lot of shaping and a lot of work. And the ring helped me to turn my characters from being inactive individuals who things just kind of happened to characters that were driving the pace of the story forward.
How did you find the workshop environment and the actual process?
The workshop environment was incredibly motivating. As I've said before, I don't know if it was my particular session or if it's the program as a whole. I find it brings people in that want to learn and want to grow in terms of their own craft, which generally made it a very supportive room, and a room where questions that came from other people weren't from a place of bringing your work down or taking it apart, but supporting you so that they could learn through your experience the same that you learned through theirs.
Talk about the coaching. Did you find that helpful, and what areas did it help you? That kind of thing.
Yeah. I would say the coaching really helped me to identify, for me mostly in this particular script, what was happening with my main character. She was clearly the protagonist from the start, but completely lost in space. And it helped to shape that individual so that the entire story could build and kind of avalanche around her. Making her more clear made everything more clear.
What about the reading? You know, when you heard the actors read the script, what happened for you? What was the experience of having these actors read your script?
That was probably one of my favorite experiences that I've ever had in relation to this script, and I've had it for quite a while with me. For that, it was because I was able to hear life brought into the script, and I was able to hear where it worked, and where it worked in places that I really didn't think it was, and where it was falling flat, and where for myself I needed to kind of shape things up and make it a little stronger, and what to do next, because I'd kind of gotten to a point when I finished that draft, so much of what my experience was in the ring went into that draft, and it felt very complete, but I knew it wasn't. But I didn't know where to go from there. So having it read aloud helped me to identify, okay, this is what's going on, and it gave it an audience so that I could ask questions and see what people were getting and see what they weren't, and see where there were holes that I needed to fill in order to make this a nice smooth story.
What's next in terms of, what are you going to do next? Are you going to write another draft? And what are your plans for marketing the script?
That's actually a really good question. I have a few different avenues that I'm trying to figure out what is best for the life of the story. There has always been the idea that I would do a proof of concept as a short and then develop that into a full production, from using that as a means of showcasing what I can do with my words. That's still an option. I still have that written. Another option that was thrown at me was the idea of turning it into a series, which really spoke to me in the sense that there's so much in the script that as I've written it, I've said there's no room for this. There's no room for this. But it really does support the story, and it really does support these characters. And to elongate the format for the script, I think would really give it a better life. How to market it? Does the Ring have a business class session? That would be fantastic, because I know how to write, but I have no idea how to get my writing out there. And that's my next step, I think.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. You have some animation in your script.
I do, yeah.
Are you thinking of incorporating that into the, like if you use a little piece, if you take it, yeah?
I would like to. Now, animation is hard to do on a small budget if I'm just doing a small proof of concept, but for me, the place where that animation is so important is for a few reasons. One, I think it is a strong visual tool in terms of indicating the breadth of storytelling and storytelling as a culture. But the second reason why is because, the name of the story is The Last Caribou, and the reality is I don't know when the last time I saw a caribou was. When I was a kid, we used to go skidooing out to our cabin and see herds while we were on our way, and that's not the case anymore. So the chance of actually getting a crew out somewhere to film and have those moments in there is very next to impossible. And you can use stock footage, but I don't think it's the same. So for me, that's a big part of where that animation comes into play, is because there are places where our land is disappearing underneath us faster than what we can hold on to right now. And in order to visually articulate the story I want, I have to animate part of it.
So you would say this is kind of an environmentally conscious film?
Yeah. Parts of it are. The North that I was born into is very different than what the North is now. And all over the place in terms of temperatures, in terms of global warming, in terms of the animals and where they're at, starving essentially because of the difference in climate. But last week, it was minus 29 in Yellowknife, and that's unheard of in April. And it might seem like, oh, well, it's cold. That's a good thing because, we're shifting globally towards a warmer climate. But in general, it kind of just puts up red flags and says things are out of whack and they're not getting better. If we want to make them better, if we, for our own selfish reasons, if we want to, keep using this place, we got to start doing it a little more respectfully. Otherwise, there's not going to be a place for us to tell these stories anymore.
What was your major goal in writing this film?
It's shifted. It started as writing a piece that, as a young woman, coming from an acting background as well, I wanted to put something on its feet that I would be excited to step into myself. The script actually has more primary female characters than male. And so that's where it first started. And it also, there was a political movement here in BC that I was really unhappy with when I was younger. And that I'd done a lot of work volunteering around that election, and to see it go sideways and in a way that it just didn't seem possible for it to go that way, and it did, really made me feel hopeless. And I wanted to find a way to connect people so that other people who were feeling that hopelessness found a community and felt strength in their movements. So that was a big part of the initial push. And then it's kind of morphed into, to be honest, the vessel that I've used to learn about the industry. I've taken it to the Banff Centre of the Arts for workshops in terms of directing and cinematography. I've worked here in Vancouver with the Women in the Directors Chair organization with the project. It's been read in New Zealand. And it's given me an opportunity to really understand the different elements of post, funding, and production, and what it takes to take a story and put it on its feet.
Great.